大家好，今天是2025年6月3日，我们来解读一下昨天美联储主席鲍威尔在国际金融部门75周年纪念上的一个讲话。他介绍了美联储的结构和职能，国际金融部门的使命和成就。我们觉得这是一次很好的知识普及，大部分的投资者可能对美联储还是一知半解啊。欢迎回到大脑透镜，我们致力于过滤垃圾信息，挖掘优质内容。订阅我们，获取财经精华。可能部分朋友已经了解，美联储由3大实体构成：联邦储备委员会理事会、12家地区联邦储备银行和联邦公开市场委员会，也就是有名的 FOMC。理事会是对国会负责的，有7名成员，他们的任期是14年，主要负责体系监管和政策制定。12家地区联邦储备银行在各辖区范围内履行银行监管、消费者保护、社区发展及支付系统管理等职能。联邦公开市场委员会呢，有12名成员，通过调控利率等手段实施货币政策，以实现国会规定的双重使命，也就是最大化就业和保持价格的稳定。美联储还通过美联储教育计划提供教育资料和培训，以提升国民的金融素养。他继续介绍了国际金融部门及其成就。该部门成立于1950年的7月1日，旨在应对二战后美国成为布雷顿森林体系主导的经济强国所带来的日益重要的国际经济和金融问题。大脑透镜补充一点信息布雷顿森林体系规定，黄金与美元挂钩，35美元兑换1盎司黄金，而其他货币与美元挂钩。这个体系在1971年尼克松总统宣布暂停美元与黄金的兑换，开始崩溃。到1973年的时候，固定汇率制度彻底瓦解，逐步进入浮动汇率时代。他说，国际金融部门的核心使命是通过对国际贸易、资本流动、海外通胀、大宗商品价格及美元走势等国际因素的分析，支持美联储履行国内职责。一句话，是个内部智囊，或者说是内部的咨询机构。那么国际金融部门取得了哪些成就呢？他说，培养了包括耶伦、罗格夫、赫希曼在内的杰出人才，并开发了早期多国宏观经济模型，增强了美联储分析国际经济冲击的能力，还创新开发了地缘政治风险指数、通胀不确定性指数、贸易政策不确定性指数等经济测量工具，在经济危机中发挥关键作用，包括1980年代拉美债务危机、2008年全球金融危机和新冠疫情期间建立货币互换安排，以保持美元流动性。最后他强调了这个部门的持续重要性，表示未来仍然需要这个部门提供关于全球贸易、资本流动和金融市场的关键数据与研究，为货币政策提供依据，确保美联储保持全球视野，支持国际协作，并维持与各国央行的稳固关系。好，要点就是这些。接下来是 AI 语音中文版和英文的原声。鲍威尔的语速不快建议学习英文的朋友也可以听一下。如果我们的内容对您有用，请帮忙订阅、点赞、转发，我们会持续改进。
感谢贝斯·安妮的介绍。首先，请允许我对前副主席斯坦利·费希尔的亲友表示哀悼。斯坦不仅是美联储的同仁，更是国际经济学界的泰斗。他不仅以个人成就登顶学术巅峰，更以导师身份培育了一代经济学巨擘，包括多位全球央行行长、总统经济顾问及无数经济学家。他的慷慨指导令所有与他共事过的人深深怀念。在此，我要祝贺国际金融部 IF 为美联储理事会进而为全体美国人民奉献卓越服务的75周年。今日与会者既有现任员工，也有众多杰出前辈，历任主任特德·杜鲁门、卡伦·约翰逊、内森·希茨、史蒂夫·卡明，更培育了包括主席兼财长珍妮特·耶伦、学者兼国际象棋大师肯·罗格夫、人道主义经济学家阿尔伯特·赫希曼等翘楚赫芬达尔·赫希曼指数的联合创立者。最近还客串了网飞剧集《跨大西洋》的角色。在美联储任职期间，我亲历国际金融部在全球经济动态、国际贸易、跨境资本流动及海外金融市场发展方面提供的真知灼见。 该部门在全球金融动荡时刻始终发挥关键作用，其研究分析更是货币政策决策的重要依据。仅向75年来所有部门成员致以谢意。今日我将首先回顾部门创立初衷，隶属重大成就，随后进入精彩的专题演讲环节。国际金融部成立于1950年7月1日，但构想早在数年前便已萌芽。二战后的美国成为全球经济霸主，布雷顿森林体系确立了我们核心地位。当时美联储就清醒认识到，要实现双重使命，必须深化对全球局势的认知。1948年筹建备忘录中预言，国际经济金融问题正变得日益庞大、复杂且重要，我们的对外经济关系将持续引发重大议题。这一经济预测堪称精准。75载后的今天，美联储仍需洞悉各国政策实践及其对美经济金融市场的影响。尽管汇率政策已归属财政部之权，但布雷顿森林体系瓦解后，货币政策制定者必须研判美元波动对民众与企业的影响。正如疫情期间所示，理解全球贸易与资本流动比1950年更为紧要。国际金融部不仅编制国际资本流动数据，更数十年如一日研究其对各国经济的影响。把握这张错综复杂的全球网络，对我们预判就业与通胀路径至关重要。1970年代另一重大进展是宏观经济模型的应用，在前主任拉尔夫·布莱恩特领导下，部门首创多国模型。在座诸位经济学家不断迭代精密模型，持续提升应对国际风险的能力。这些模型帮助我们理解国际冲击的传导机制，通过情景模拟评估风险，更深刻把握各类冲击对全球经济的含义。其成果见于研究报告、董事会备忘录及 FOMC 会前风险评估材料。面对全球经济动荡，国际金融部同样功不可没。1980年代拉美债务危机中，部门与 IMF 等机构共同建立紧急融资机制。随资本流动激增，又持续监测墨西哥、亚洲、俄罗斯等地金融风险。这些经验在全球金融危机和疫情期间显现无价价值。当美元融资市场承压时，部门推动建立央行互换安排。疫情期间创设 FIMA 回购工具，扩大美元流动性。危机催生的新型分析工具包括地缘政治风险指数、通胀不确定性指标等，在当前高度不确定环境下尤具现实意义。最后，我想说，75年来，9任美联储主席及无数理事都受益于国际金融部的专业支持，远不止危机应对时刻。这个团队总以详尽甚至极其详尽的筹备材料，以及伴随出访的务实作风，确保我们胜任国际事务。你们与全球同行构建的紧密关系，让我们获益良多。感谢贝斯、安妮及会务团队的精心筹备，更感谢全体现任与前成员。正是你们的付出，才铸就了这个兼具国际视野与应变能力的美联储，让我们能为全体美国人民践行双重使命。衷心感谢。
Thank you, and thank you, Beth Ann. I guess I'd like to start by offering my condolences to the family and friends of former Vice Chair Stanley Fischer. Stan was a colleague of ours here at the Fed and a giant in the field of international economics. In addition to reaching the highest levels of the field in his own right, he was also a trusted and generous mentor and a teacher to a generation of the most important economic thinkers, including many heads of global central banks, advisors to presidents, and countless economists. And I know all of us who knew him will miss him. So, congratulations to the Division of International Finance, IF in these parts, on 75 years of outstanding work in service to the Federal Reserve Board and by extension to all Americans. Many current staff members are here to celebrate today, as well as a significant number of IF alumni, including past division directors Ted Truman, Karen Johnson, Nathan Sheets, and Steve Kamen. The division has also produced many other notable alums, including, not least, Chair and Secretary Janet Yellen, Professor, author, chess grandmaster, and our keynote speaker Ken Rogoff, and humanitarian and economist Albert Hirschman, famous for the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, and more recently, perhaps a little less famous, as a character in Netflix series Transatlantic, to name just a few. We keep close track of these things. In my time at the Fed, the IF division has provided invaluable insight into global economic activity, international trade and capital flows, and developments in foreign financial markets. Division staff have also played a key role during episodes of global financial stress. And your research and analysis are critical inputs into our monetary policy decisions. Thank you to all that have served in this division over the past 75 years. Today, I'll kick off this conference by briefly reviewing why the division was created in the first place and highlighting a few of its many accomplishments over the years before turning you over to a robust set of presentations and panels. So, the IF division was created on July 1, 1950, but the idea began to germinate a few years earlier. The U.S. had emerged from World War II as a global economic superpower. The Bretton Woods Agreement placed the U.S. and the Fed in a central position in the global economy. Our mission then, as it is now, was to serve the American people. But it was clear at that moment that the Fed needed to have better knowledge of global developments to achieve our dual mandate goals. A 1948 memo proposing to create the division stated, quoting, "Problems of international economics and finance have become increasingly large, complex, and significant in recent years, and our foreign economic relations will undoubtedly continue to give rise to issues of the first magnitude." That rare economic forecast that has turned out to be spot on. 75 years later, it remains critical that the Fed understand the policies and practices of other governments and central banks and their implications for the U.S. economy and for financial markets. Exchange rate policy, of course, is now firmly in the hands of the U.S. Treasury. However, the end of the Bretton Woods era in the 1970s fundamentally changed the conduct of monetary policy, as policymakers had to understand the effects of potentially more volatile movements of the U.S. dollar on American families and businesses. Understanding global trade and capital movements has only grown in importance since 1950, as we saw during the pandemic. IF helps produce the data on international capital flows and has spent decades researching the effects of these flows and international trade on U.S. and foreign economies. Understanding this complex and interconnected web is essential for us to anticipate the path of employment and inflation. Another important development in the 1970s was the increasing use of macroeconomic modeling, which greatly influenced the division's work. Under the direction of former division director Ralph Bryant, IF developed its first multi-country model. Always on the forefront over the years, economists in the division, many of whom are in this room today, developed increasingly sophisticated models, with each new generation expanding the capability to tackle the international risks and issues of that day. These models have proven useful for understanding how international shocks transmit through the economy and financial markets, for assessing risks and uncertainties through alternative scenarios, and for better comprehending the implications of various shocks for the U.S. and the global economy. The results have informed research papers, board memos and briefings, as well as the risks and uncertainty assessment that FOMC committee participants receive in advance of every meeting. The IF division has also played an important role in responding to global economic turbulence. A prime example is the Latin American debt crisis of the 1980s. That episode required analytical thinking about the macroeconomic repercussions of the crisis as it played out around the world. Work by the division and by the IMF and other institutions led to the establishment of emergency facilities to prevent more dire financial outcomes. As global capital flows increased, other episodes of financial distress surfaced across the world, including in Mexico, Asia, and Russia. International capital flows and spillovers became and remain a recurrent feature in the division's analytical and monitoring work. The expertise generated through study and response to these global challenges proved invaluable when stress hit closer to home during the global financial crisis and then the pandemic. Both of those events required immediate, broad, and in many cases unprecedented responses to avoid disrupting the availability of credit to American households and businesses. The nation and the world looked to the Fed to lead in these moments. During the global financial crisis, when global funding markets came under stress, IF worked to establish swap line arrangements with several major central banks that helped restore stability in U.S. dollar funding markets. And of course, during the pandemic, IF division helped lead efforts to expand the provision of dollar liquidity by setting up the FEMA repo facility. These periods of acute financial stress and uncertainty prompted the division to develop new tools and analytical products that could be used to understand and respond to the events unfolding on the ground. For instance, the division has devised new methods to measure and assess the effects of various types of uncertainty on economic activity, including new indexes that were built to track geopolitical risk, inflation, trade policy, and economic uncertainty. As we continue to navigate the current period of heightened uncertainty, this work is critical to understanding the quantitative implications of uncertainty shocks, certainly relevant today. So I'll conclude by saying that for 75 years, 9 Fed chairs and countless board members have greatly benefited from the guidance and counsel of IF staff, and not just when responding to crisis. This team helps to assure that we're well prepared for our international engagements by providing us detailed, some might say extremely detailed materials ahead of time, and often by traveling with us. IF staff are always welcome and productive companions. In these and other endeavors, we benefit from the robust relationships that you establish and maintain with our global counterparts. So, thank you to Beth Ann and to all the staff here that organized this wonderful event. And finally, thank you again to all the current and former IF staff for what you have done and continue to do to help us be a globally knowledgeable and responsive central bank so that we can deliver on our dual mandate for all Americans. Thank you very much.